Hey guys, let's talk about epidurals. The horrible, dreaded E word in labor and delivery stories. And this is just going to be my experience with epidurals. This is not advice. This is not saying you should get one, you shouldn't get one. This is just like I have had three, and so this is my experience with all three of them, the good and the bad, and what happened, and maybe someone is looking for epidurals to see if they should get one when they have their baby or not, and you'll stumble upon this and maybe it will help you make up your mind. I don't know. So, first off, what is an epidural? It's a very controversial thing in the world of labor and delivery with moms and natural natural laboring and not natural, and people love their epidurals and people are totally against epidurals, and if you get an epidural you're like failing as a mom already, and it's just stupid. But an epidural is when they have you when you are laboring and delivering and you just can't take the pain anymore or the pushing or whatever, and you want some anesthesia to help you. And what they do is they have you, at least they've had me. I read somewhere that they can do it laying down too, which I've never heard of. Um, but they have you sit up on the edge of your hospital bed, and they have you hold on to whoever is with you. So, like with me, it's John, and I hold on around his shoulders, and you sit as straight and as still as possible while they place a needle in between your vertebrae into the spinal column, the spinal space of the spinal column. And you can't move, or else they could really damage your spinal cord. Um, and then they put a catheter like tube into the needle, and then they take the needle out and they tape the catheter onto your back. So now you have this tube sticking out of your back, and then they hook that up to the IV. I have heard women have like a push button, kind of like a morphine button, but it's for the epidural. Um, and but I never had that. I always just had it in an IV. It like hangs in a case on my IV stand, and it just administers according to my weight and size and blah, so I never had a push button. What drugs are in the epidural really varies from hospital to hospital. You can't say it's this one all the time. It's a combination sometimes. But they put the drugs into your spinal column, and it deadens sensation to the lower half of your body. So that I want to say they put it like love handle level, mid back to love handle level, lower back of your back, and it deadens sensation to your uterus, to the contractions, to your legs, to your bladder. If you have an epidural, most likely you're going to have a catheter placed, because you can't control your bladder if you can't feel your bladder, and they really don't want you peeing the bed. So you're probably going to have a catheter. There is something called a walking epidural. I have never had one of those, so I'm not talking about walking epidurals. I'm talking about you are stuck in the bed, not moving epidurals. So that's what epidurals are. In layman's terms, that's what they are. They deaden the bottom half of your body. You'll hear horror stories of my epidural didn't work, or my epidural only worked on half of my body, or it didn't work at all, or you'll hear women say I had a spinal headache afterward, and that's when spinal fluid leaks out of the hole in the spinal cord that they made to put where they put the catheter in. They take the catheter out, and it leaks spinal fluid in your head knows, your brain knows, and so you get a headache. Or and you have to go back in and get a blood patch done, and I've never had that happen. Oh my gosh, thank you. Or they have horrible back pain from where it was. And so you'll hear that kind of stuff. But then you hear a lot of ones like me, oh, that was weird, who might have had just little things happen that were annoying, or like an epidural that worked perfectly and I had no issues. So it's kind of half and half. You look it up on the internet and you're going to find all kinds of stuff. But these are my experiences. So for my epidural with Tyron, I was not going to get an epidural. I was so against getting an epidural because it was so horrible. blah, 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 not good for the baby, dangerous, blah, you know, I don't know. All the stuff you hear about not getting an epidural. And 12 hours into my labor and 7 centimeters into my labor, and several doses of fentanyl through my IV into my labor. The fentanyl made me so sick, I will never let them give me a local anesthetic in my IV ever again because it made me so sick. I spent however long they had been giving it to me puking. And that's not fun when you're already not feeling good because of labor. So, at 12 hours of labor and 7 centimeters of labor, my body started pushing, even with the fentanyl, my body started pushing involuntarily. And I could not, for the life of me, control it. I wasn't doing it. My body was doing it. And I swelled my cervix. The pressure from pushing swelled my cervix from a 7 to a 4, like a donut. And I was heartbroken because I've gone back down to a 4. And if you keep swelling like this, you're going to end up with a C-section because you're never going to dilate enough to have your baby. And my nurse was the sweetest thing ever. She was like, honey, are you sure you don't want an epidural? And John and I talked about it, looked at each other, talked about it. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I would like an epidural. And it's funny because his mom got up and left the room. She was so distraught because I had said yes to an epidural because she was so pro not epidural. She was so against it. And I never knew why she walked out of the room until later. I found out that's why, because I had said yes to the epidural. So they came and they placed the epidural. Now, here I will say it was very annoying because you have to sit up straight and you have to hold on to your partner. So I'm like holding on to his shoulders. He like leans over or sits on a stool or something. And you have to sit as still as possible while you're having contractions. And I've heard women say get it as early as possible so you don't have to do that. But I wait as long as possible before getting mine. And I'm going to switch something real quick. I'm squinting a lot. Maybe that will help me not squint. I wait as long as possible to get mine, so I'm kind of doing it to myself, but you're sitting there holding on to your partner, having to sit super still, and you'll get hit with a contraction. And it's the most awful thing ever to sit up and have to sit still through a contraction. But with this epidural, the anesthesiologist placed it, and something was wrong with the needle or something because he placed the needle and then he went to place the catheter and it's like the needle wasn't open on one end or something. So he had to take it out and do it again. And that was kind of annoying because every time they place it, my legs jump like I was shocked. And it's just a really weird feeling. It's not like bad, but I was kind of perturbed that they had to place it twice. And I'm like, oh, great. This is what, John's mom was talking about. This is going to be horrible. They're having to place it twice. And, but no, he got it the second time and they started it and I was able to sleep and I was able to relax my body and my body stopped pushing and, my cervix was able to relax and I finished dilating and then I had Ty. So that was the only thing. And I never got back pain and I never had a spinal headache. The only thing from that epidural that has had lasting effects is I have an area, a little area, maybe like, I don't know how big it is. I haven't like measured it, but back on my right side at the top of my rump, pretty much just my butt cheek, I am numb. I am permanently numb. You can, and sometimes it's like super oversensitive to like pain if I fall or bruise it or something. But really it's just numb. Like if I touch it or like run my finger over it, it's just numb. And so that's weird, but I had heard that could happen, just permanent numbness in one area of your body. And I'm very glad it's only like a little part of my bum and not like my leg or my back or something. It's just a little part on the top of my bum. So I don't know, but that's all that happened with that epidural. With Brooke's epidural, when I had Brooke, I dilated to a 7 or 8, and the doctor came in and said, hey, you're dilated, do you want me to break your water? And I was like, yes, but if you're going to break my water, I want my epidural. And so she broke my water, and then the anesthesiologist came and placed the epidural, and placing it was not bad. I don't remember it being placed, so that's probably a good thing. But afterward is when it got really annoying. After they placed it and I laid back down, I was numb from the boobs down. Numb. Like, not, I couldn't feel my boobs or anything, like the tingly numb. Like, my leg just fell asleep. Numb. Tingly numb. And that was super annoying. And I asked about it, and they were like, well, it's the right dosage and everything, so I don't know what's going on. But I seriously was tingly numb from my boobs down, and it was the most annoying thing ever. And then, on top of that, I got uncontrollable shivers. And I think that's also like a side effect that you risk when you have an epidural is shivering. But I had uncontrollable shivers while my body was numb. Um, and the numbness never went away. Like, I mean, I guess they could have turned it down a little bit, but I still remember being numb for a very long time. And then I got the uncontrollable shivers, and I was sitting there shivering, and they're like, are you cold? You need a blanket? I'm like, no, I'm not cold. I don't need a blanket. I just want to stop shivering. And my teeth would chatter. I was shivering so bad. It was awful. And then, on top of that, she placed the catheter, and I felt like I had to pee. Like, I didn't feel like I had to pee until the catheter was placed. And then she placed it, and I felt like I had to pee. And you know when you have to pee so freaking bad that it's almost painful? That's how it was. I was like, I have to pee. And I don't even care if I pee the bed. I have to pee. And I could not relax enough to get any relief. And I kept telling the nurse and John, and she was like, it's placed right. And she fiddled with it a little bit, and she's like, it's not in there too far, it's not in there too short, it's perfect. Your catheter is perfect, so there's no reason you need to pee. But I felt like I was sitting on a full bladder. So I had that, and I had the shivers, and I had the numbness, and I was laboring. But by then you can't really feel the contractions, so laboring isn't bad. And Brooke was born maybe an hour to 2 hours later. I can't remember how long it takes me to get from an 8 to a 10. But, and then Brooke was born, and so they got to shut it off, and the numbness went away, and they took my catheter out eventually, and I felt a whole lot better once they shut the epidural off. So that was my most annoying epidural, was that, because that was all happening at once. And I don't remember anything like that happening with Ty. Now, with Phoebe's was a perfect epidural also, because I got to about a 7 or an 8, and John and I were talking about it, because I went into Phoebe's labor not wanting one, but knowing I would get one if I needed it, but I was really going to try not to get one. But by the time I got to a 7 or an 8, I was so stressed, like I was stressing out, and the contractions were just so bad that I was like, John, can I have an epidural? And he was like, oh yeah. So they called, they had it placed. They laid me back down. I remember having several contractions while they were placing it, and it's awful. But that was the only thing that went wrong. And I remember laying back down, and the anesthesiologist was across the room, and my nurse was right here on the computer. And I was like, is it on yet? And the anesthesiologist was like, no, it's not. I have to do the math. And it was just funny because I was like, is it on yet? Turn it on. It was awful. And then 10 minutes, and I don't ever remember, I did not have a catheter with Phoebe. I don't know if she just hadn't placed it, or she wasn't gonna place it, or what, but I did not have a catheter with Phoebe, and it was amazing. But 10 minutes after they turned the epidural on, I got some relief from the contractions, and my water broke by itself for the first time. And then 10 minutes after my water broke, Phoebe came. And Phoebe came with no pushing. I could still feel the contractions. I could still feel the pressure, but not like hurting. It just deadens it. So it was like hers was the most perfect epidural, and I only had it for 20 minutes. But she came with no pushing, because the nurse was waiting. We were waiting for something. We were waiting for the doctor, or the cart, they bring in this whole cart of instruments or something. And I remember And I didn't have my birth mirror yet, because I always ask for a mirror, so you can see the baby come. I don't think I had it yet, but I remember feeling her coming, and I remember crowning, and I wasn't doing anything. I was just laying there having contractions. And I looked at the nurse, who was sitting at the end of the bed, and John was sitting like by my side on both. They were just boop, boop, right here. And I was like, the baby's coming. And she was like, I had my legs up, because once you hit that part, you can't close your legs. And she was like, oh yeah. And so she and John caught Phoebe, and I didn't push. I promise you, I did not push. And I love telling people that, because I hear people tell stories of, I pushed for 2 hours or something, and I'm like, I've never pushed more than 3 times with any of my babies. Once I start pushing, I make it work. And I've never pushed more than 3 times with Ty or Brooke. And then with Phoebe, I didn't push at all. So John and the nurse caught the baby, and they were letting the cord, slow down. And another nurse came in to check, like, do you need anything? And the nurse was like, we have a baby. And the nurse that came in was like, oh my gosh, and ran out to get, the rest of the crew and the instruments and stuff. And it was just funny, because she was like, we have a baby. And then they turned the epidural off, and that was the shortest epidural I've ever had. I only had it for 20 minutes, and I kind of kick myself for even getting it, because I feel like I could have done 20 minutes. I could have done that without the epidural. But then I think, but maybe the epidural was why it only took 20 minutes, I don't know. Who knows what would have happened if I hadn't had it. So, but, so that was the most perfect epidural. Now, the one thing that is super annoying on any of your standard epidurals, not the walking ones, but the standard ones, is once they turn it off, once you've had your baby and you've delivered your placenta and everyone's been checked out and you're laying in bed and they turn it off, you cannot get out of bed for like an hour. And so they leave the catheter in, but you can't get out of bed for like an hour, because your legs won't work. They're numb. They will not hold you up, and they don't want you, right after having a baby, getting out of bed and falling and hurting yourself or something. So I always end up in bed for an hour, or so. I mean, whoops. That's weird. My battery notification came up, but you were still recording. Sorry. For an hour. And it's never been, like, it's just really annoying, because, you sit there and you hold your baby and everything, and then finally enough time has gone by and you're like slapping your legs, making sure you can feel them, and I think I could walk, and I really have to pee, so you have to call the nurse, and then 2 nurses come in and they give you your little sock booties, and they help you out of bed, and they help you walk to the bathroom, and you go to the bathroom, and then they help you walk back, and it's really annoying. And I wish that I could just not do that part, but whatever. So now with baby number 4, I am going in with the same mentality as I did with Phoebe. I am going in, and I'm going to go, if I labor naturally or if I have to be induced, I'm still going to go for as long as I can without it. And maybe this time will be the time that I don't need it. But if we get to a point, and John's like this too, because he'll tell me, he'll be like, I think you need an epidural. Like, he's really good about that, and I really trust him because he knows me better than I know me. So, yeah. So, I'm going in, and I'm going to try not to get one, but I'm not going to be super against it if I end up feeling like I need one, because I've had 3, and they've been good experiences. I've never had the spinal headache. I've never had the back pain. So, I count those as good epidurals when I haven't had anything happen that's horrible. Brooke's was just the most annoying. So, I'm hitting 20 minutes. That is my experiences with 3 epidurals. I hope that helps you make up your mind. I hope it educates you a little bit, but always talk to your doctor, always talk to your nurses, always talk to your spouse or birth coach or whoever's in there with you, and do what you want to do. Don't do it just because I did it. Don't do it because anyone else did it. Do it because you want to and need to. Or don't do it because you don't want to and you don't need to, because that means you're a little better at this labor and delivery thing than I was. But I hope you liked this video. I hope it helps. Please thumbs up and subscribe. That way you can see my next video going up whenever it goes up. So I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.